Hello everyone, in this After Effects tutorial we're going to make these fancy falling leaves that kind of deform on the wind. Ooh, whoosh whoosh. The tutorial is mostly going to focus on the motion of the leaves and getting this kind of deformation as they fall in. Then we're going to talk a little bit about making this looping so you can get all these leaves looping and coming in with minimal effort. Then we'll get into the texturing of this thing and then we'll be done. I'm hoping that the methodologies we employ here, working from large motions to small details, are going to help you out with other animations that aren't leaves. You could apply it to a lot of things. I'm Evan Abrams and this is Simple Falling Leaves in After Effects. This tutorial is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design, animation, fine art, and much, much more. A premium membership at Skillshare gets you unlimited access to high-quality classes from experts working in their fields, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. Experts like me. I have a course on there, but also experts like Stephanie Coleman. She's a picture book illustrator and licensing artist. Check out her charming illustration and sketching tutorials. If you enjoy these highly textured, natural scenes like you see in this tutorial, you will love her style for creating cute little animals, woodland creatures, floral patterns. This scene definitely could have used some of her animals. Maybe a little fox or a bird or something. Skillshare is more affordable than most learning platforms with an annual membership coming in at under $10 a month. And the first 500 people to use the link in the description, skl.sh/ECAbrams7, that's EC Abrams and the number 7, will get 2 months of Skillshare for free. All right, so let's get into it. I've got a bin here for the example things and everything we do. We're going to throw in that bin. If you get yourself the example file, everything we work on will be found there. You can get that at evanabrams.com. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new composition, and let's just call this leaf. And it's going to be 540 by 540, kind of a small square. And the duration is really only 1 frame. We don't need that many frames unless you're going to animate something about the leaf. If you're going to put maybe a looping animation in here, or the texture of the leaf is going to be animated in some way, then go ahead and add some frames. But I only need the 1 frame. So now I'm going to draw a little shape in here. I'm just going to double click on the ellipse tool, make a circle, and we're going to right click and convert it to a Bezier path, and just select some points, and I can grab them here, and I can hold down Alt when I resize this box to get them around here. Okay, that's fine. Now select these other points, grab my Convert Vertex tool, and convert them. Oh, looks like a leaf to me now. So now I'm just going to take this layer here, and I'm just going to scale it down just a little bit. And that's it. We've made a leaf. We nailed it. We're not going to get into the texturing right now. We're going to get to that a little bit later because I want us to move on to animating the motion of this thing. All the texturing we can do later. But first, to illustrate something in the tutorial, I'm going to just apply a gradient ramp to this thing. So we're going to do a ramp so that it has, a black end and a white end. Good. Big thumbs up for that. So now we need to put this leaf in something. So I'm going to make a composition here. Call this the example loop. And I'm going to work with HDTV 1080 24 frames a second. And we probably only need about 5 seconds, let's say. So it's going to be 5 seconds and we're good to go. So here we go. 5 second easy loop. We got our leaf. Bring that out into your composition. I'm going to toggle my transparency grid so we can see the background. So if we want this leaf, this 1 frame leaf, to last the rest of the composition, we just need to go Layer, Time, and we're going to freeze frame it and then just drag this out. So now it's displaying the same frame for all time. Now I'm going to animate its position. So I'm just going to call it P for position, set a keyframe, and let's see. It'll have to start off frame, as most things do. Then maybe by 1 second, it's going to drift over here. And then maybe at 2 seconds, it'll drift over here. Whoosh. And then by 3 seconds, it'll drift away. Whoosh, bye. And that's it. So it's going to go whoosh, whoosh, goodbye. Now, you can see these little points here. This is the motion path. So this path is defined by these little points here. We can't see all of the path at once because in my preferences, I've said, well, I only want to see so many frames worth of path in either direction. It can get really complicated if you have a huge path and it's just crazy town. You don't want that. Now I need to deform this path. I don't like these straight lines. So again, we're going to go back to the Convert Vertex tool because we are converting these vertices. So I'm going to click up here and you see it gives me this handle. Oh, it's got a handle I can drag out. Cool. And this one too, I can click and drag that handle out. Sweet. Now I'm going to click up here. I'm going to drag its handle out. Whoa, weird handle. It has two handles. And if you grab one of the handles, then drag it, you see I'm only dragging that handle. So I drag both handles out, and then I drag the one handle, just like that. Cool, cool. So now I can just reposition these, maybe tweak their handles a little bit like this, because now I've moved on to my selection tool, not on my convert vertex tool anymore. But I would like to have these handles, if not be right on top of each other, then at least be lined up like so that they're on the same vector. Now that's going to be important when I go ahead and start using a little helper, get this thing lined up, get this leaf lined up the way we want it. Because right now, the leaf is not oriented the correct way. I would have to grab its rotation, turn it 90 degrees, and now it's kind of lined up the right way, but I want it to follow this path. So if I want the rotation to be influenced by its direction, then we can just go up here to Layer, Transform, and Orient. We just go to the Auto Orientation, we say Orient Along Path, hit OK, and there we go. So now it's coming in along the path. Oh, wait, what's that terrible thing it's doing? It is changing direction when it hits into each of these curves, because the path is pointing in this direction and then switches and points in the other direction. That's just what's happening. So we need to get into the rotation here. I'm going to call up the position as well, holding Shift P. We are going to get this rotation to get a little fixed. So rather than being 90, I'm just going to set a keyframe, move that keyframe back to the start. So 90 degrees here at the start. Once I hit here, it needs to be negative 90. That looks correct, yeah. This white part is still going the right direction. Oh, it switched around on me, so now it needs to be back up to positive 90. Well, now we know it'll switch back the other direction, so I'm going to go negative 90 there. Okay. Oh, now it's moving in between. I don't like that. You might. That might be something fun for you. But I'm just going to select these, and we're going to go toggle hold keyframe, meaning there's no interpolation between. It just switches as soon as it hits there. So the leaf is oriented the same way, same way, same way. So I'm going to grab the position. These linear in time keyframes are not doing it for me. So I'm going to go here, select the keyframes for the position, hit F9, which is going to ease them, go into the graph editor, and I'm going to grab these handles. I'm going to just pull them. I'm going to give them a little pull so that they get a little bit more extreme. Neat. So now, whoosh, whoosh. See how it's softly just relaxing. Oh, and it changes direction. Like all the speed is being taken out of it. Like the air is buffeting it, and then it changes direction. So that's what we want. We're working from general big motions into finer details. So now we've defined where it's moving, how it's moving there. We now need to get another layer of detail on here. Let's deform this thing. Let's get it deforming as if the wind is pushing it up in the corners here and maybe stretching it out and conforming it along that path as it goes along. So to help me out with that, I'm going to need the Puppet Pin tool. There are many ways to deform layers, but the Puppet Pin tool in this case is going to help us out. Also, P sounds are hilarious. You know, we like alliteration here on the channel. So Puppet Pin is the place to be. And I'm going to put a pin right here in the middle. Bloop. And then we're going to put another pin over here at the edge and another one over here at this edge. We're working with After Effects 2019, so our pin tool might be different from your pin tool. We are really only using the regular Puppet Position tool, and this will work with your regular pin tool. If you're using legacy versions of the pin, it'll be fine. The methodology is the same. It's cool. All we're doing is we're dropping these pins down on here, and now we can move the pin around to deform that part of the leaf. Ooh, look at that. Oh, I'm bending it. I'm bending you, leaf. I can do whatever I want because I'm the person controlling After Effects. So now I'm able to make use of the position of those pins, and we have keyframes for the positions of those pins that we can manipulate as this thing comes around. So right here, I want to move these pins to be more on the line and to be a little bit more stretched out. I'm going to stretch this leaf because as it's coming down, I want it to stretch out, and I want to try to conform to this path here. So I'm going to try to conform it onto that path. Doop. That's pretty good. And then when it runs into the corner here, what I'd like for it to do is to be like the air is catching it. So the air is going to kind of buffet this part up, maybe push these down a little bit. So how does that look? Gets buffeted, and then it's going to get back on line, this other line that it's going on, and return this middle point to the center. So now it's going to have this kind of a shape. So it's going to come up whoosh, like that. Now it seems I've been remiss in keeping this point on the line. There we go. And you might have to tune this stuff up. It can happen that you need to tune these points up. And then I'll just take the points and ease them. So now what happens? It comes up and kind of flexes into the corner as if something is puffing up the middle of it. And then it's going to come back down over here. Oh, get it back on the line. Get these things onto the line like so. And you can even exaggerate this motion by sagging it down like that. Whoa. And then it comes up. It's going to come up into the corner here. It's going to get that puff of air under it. Whoa. What's up with that? And now it's going to get back on the line here. It's going to get back on the line, and maybe this tail kicks up a little bit. Whoa, it's bending. And then it goes away. So let's have a look at that. Those little deformations we added. Having these little flexes in the corner, giving a little bit of life. Your path might be different from mine, and you'll have to do different things with your path to convey the type of motion you want. But this puppet pin tool is very powerful at having these quick little deformations. It is still very planar. It's not like we're flipping the leaf over or bending it. That's for another tutorial. But the pin tool can really give you these good, easy deformations, and it's all manual. It's all right here. If you go ahead and hit the Collapse Transformations button, now you're going to be in Trouble Town, so just leave that alone. Because of how effects are applied, if you hit Collapse Transformations, now these pins are relative to the frame, not relative to the object itself, and the deformations start to be very strange. So don't do it. Make sure you're working with something that is large enough to accommodate what you want it to do. All right, so as promised, let's get looping. So if I want more of this leaf, I could just start duplicating it. Before I do that though, I'm gonna make a new null object. Now I'm gonna duplicate the leaf, making, I don't know, maybe we call this close leaf. This leaf is going to be closer to the camera. So now I'm going to parent close leaf to that null object. I'm just going to grab everything and hit U so I can show all the keyframes. If everything's wrapping up at 3 seconds here, let's say that's where the loop happens. So I'm going to hit N. That's where my composition is going to be trimmed to. All right. And now I'm going to trim this layer here, holding Alt, hitting close brace. And there we go. So now that's the end of that. And I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to duplicate it and put one out here. One that's going to begin as soon as that one ends. Now I'll just take these two layers and pull them in a bit. So that's right there. So now let's look at this. Whoosh, whoosh. So there is this little clicky overlap here that's kind of unpleasant. Don't worry, we're going to smooth that out in a little bit here. What I want to do is, if this is the closer leaf, both these leaves are parented to this null, is to just grow it a little bit. So I can make this maybe 120. All right, so let's see how that looks. Whoosh, whoosh. Neat. So that's coming down. Now the other thing I might do to this is flip it. I might go Layer, Transform, and we will flip it horizontally. So now it's over there. So now let's have a look at what we've got. Oh, it's like they're coming down kind of in parallel. Whoa, neat. If you want to adjust the timing when this is happening, you just grab both of those layers and push them along. Because we have two copies, we basically have from here to here to play with. So you just kind of determine how far along you want that to be. And if you want to add multiple copies, flip them, put them all over the place, you can do that. You can add as many as you'd like. The one thing that kind of ruins our little illusion here is that this is starting too close. There we go. Now it's out of frame. Ah, much better. Now I'm happy. But if you want to make 3 or 4 or 5 copies of this thing and have them keep looping, just remember you need an extra copy and it needs to start when the other one ends. So that's a little thing that can help. You could, instead of doing this null and duplicates, you could just pre-compose. You could pre-compose this layer, baking in, all of these position rotational things. That's all inside the pre-composition. But that wouldn't allow you to do anything like adjusting the paths. If you want the paths to be a little bit unique, because those would all be inside that composition. Maybe that's not a big deal for you. I don't know. But those are the two kind of methods. If you were to use the pre-composing method, then you would just need to use a loop out on a time remap. But that is a matter for another tutorial. I think we need to talk about the texturing. Let's make these leaves look beautiful. So we're going to do that by just simply going into one of the leaves, this single frame of leaf, and I'll talk you through some of the effects that I applied on here to make this thing look good. We don't really need this gradient anymore. That was just for our example purposes. The first thing that I dropped on here was a displace, a turbulent displace. Now I dropped that on only so that I could deform the edges of this thing. Turbulent displace is a pretty easy displacement, and really we're just going for an amount maybe like 20, and the size is maybe like 10. So I'm just getting this little rough edge. I just wanted to roughen the edges. You could just use roughen edges for that, but I've chosen turbulent displace. Kind of goes pretty quick. Boom. The next thing I dropped on to really get that texture that you see is a noise. And I believe I'm using turbulent noise on here. This doesn't look right. Oops. But there are so many different fractal types you might do. So when you do a smeary plus a block, so fractal type is smeary, noise type is block, look at these weird angular things that happen. All right. Then I just jack up the contrast a little bit, and then maybe the brightness needs to come down a bit. Not sure. I'll tweak those values over time. It doesn't really need to be as complex, so I can probably dial this down a little bit. And now here's where things get fun, is the transform. We don't want uniform scaling. We want non-uniform scaling. I'm going to mess with the height a bit. So the height's going to get a little bit longer, like so. I'm going to mess with the rotation. So it's going to start to get a little wacky, like so. And then where things really get fun is in the subsettings. So you can change the subsettings, the influence, if you want this to be a little bit more crystally, woo, or if you want the scaling to... So you can really play with this, get this fun kind of crystally look. I was ripping off the look of The Hungry Caterpillar, a book I enjoyed as a child and as an adult. So we've got this kind of gray, fractally looking things, all these jags all over the place. All I did next was just apply a tint to that, picking the colors I would like. So if you wanted to go with fall colors, you'd probably go with some reds and then some yellows. Ooh, but you could tint this with any colors you'd like, and you really need to play around and find what works for you. Ooh, nice fiery leaves. When we go to the example loop, wouldn't you know it, all the leaves have been changed. They've been made wonderful. And that texture is getting deformed by the puppet pin tool. Whoosh. These really kind of look like fish. I don't know why I exaggerated the motion so much in here, but anyway. So then we just built a scene around the leaves. So if we go back to our initial intro here, the forest loop, we dropped in a black solid back here, which again, we used the same turbulent noise kind of fractal situation back there, just altered the settings to make it look more foresty like. And then we dropped in some trees, and the trees are using a very similar methodology on here. So these trees are actually using, starting with a turbulent displace. They have a gradient back there. Then we're adding the turbulent noise. Then we're using a curves to kind of clamp down on how that looks. Then we have a noise. Then we posterize. If you've seen our grainy gradients tutorial, you already know why we're doing this. We're posterizing it so that we have very few, only 3 levels here. And then we use tritone to define each of those. Gray becomes this, shadows become this, highlights become that. And now we get this kind of a look when we zoom out. I then applied a simple choker to get rid of the edge problems. And finally, brightness and contrast, so that further away trees are not the same shade as close trees. And that's really all there is to it. It's just a stack of effects. But The main purpose of this tutorial was to get you deforming leaves, having them float gently on the wind. And with that, it's time for us to float on. So hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. I've been Evan Abrams. If you like learning about After Effects, motion design, all that good stuff, then subscribe to the channel. Hit the old subscribe button. If you were confused, if you got lost, please leave me a question in the comments and I'll try to help you out. I know that motion path, trying to use the convert vertex, can really get some people annoyed. If you're really stuck, head on over to evanabrams.com and get your hands on the example file. It'll be these lovely leaves. If you have questions about After Effects, motion design in general, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at EC Abrams on there. There's a Facebook page as well if you want to ask questions there. And I think that's it. So thank you so much for watching. And if you subscribe, I'll see you next time. Thanks again and have a nice day. This tutorial is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design, animation, fine art, and much, much more. A premium membership at Skillshare gets you unlimited access to high-quality classes from experts working in their fields, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. Experts like me. I have a course on there, but also experts like Stephanie Coleman. She's a picture book illustrator and licensing artist. Check out her charming illustration and sketching tutorials. If you enjoy these highly textured, natural scenes like you see in this tutorial, you will love her style for creating cute little animals, woodland creatures, floral patterns. This scene definitely could have used some of her animals. Maybe a little fox or a bird or something. Skillshare is more affordable than most learning platforms with an annual membership coming in at under $10 a month. And the first 500 people to use the link in the description, skl.sh/ECAbrams7, that's EC Abrams and the number 7, will get 2 months of Skillshare for free.